Few dragons are as utterly reviled among humanoids as green dragons, known also as forest dragons. Although green dragons might not be as powerful or as destructive as some of their kin, they are innately and instinctively deceptive. They lie as easily as people speak, and they are very good at it. They love intrigue and prefer to achieve their goals through guile and double dealing over any other means. Look, any brute can hunt, but it takes skill and intelligence to trick one's prey into offering itself for dinner. Green dragons are cunning and deceitful. They would rather plan and concoct get-rich schemes with as little work as possible. Unlike blue dragons, who are incredibly smart and hardworking, green dragons would most certainly rather pick the longer but easier path. They are very ill-tempered and thoroughly evil. They enslave the intelligent beings that they meet and slay the unintelligent ones who are unfortunate enough to cross its path. Much like the black dragons, the green dragons love ambushes, but unlike the former, this one actually has a plan. It uses its slaves for specific purposes. They capture adventurers for information on treasure. They ensnare diplomats to ransom them. If you are a slave of the dragon, you must prove your worth every single day, or face death under its jaws. When speaking to intelligent beings, the dragon will sound smooth and honey-tongued, smart and cultured. It will try and make a deal with you, but in reality, the dragon is always scheming and planning. Any deal made with the dragon will surely turn sour sooner rather than later. The green dragon makes its lair on forests and woods. The magics of the dragon turns the woods magical, forcing the plants to grow thorns and work for the creature. The critters of the forest become the eyes of the dragon, the plants become its tools, and even the ground itself will hide the tracks of the beast. A pervasive mist will choke the forest, portending images of the nightmares of the dragon's slaves. This is the green dragon. This is what the monster manual tells us, and it is in fact probably the best entry for any dragon that we have seen so far. See, this is a comparison between the entry that we just touched on and the one we covered a couple of days ago on our last episode for the gold dragon. If you see here, there are a total of about 14 paragraphs for the green dragon versus a measly 6 for the gold dragon. And the green dragon's paragraphs are also generally longer too. Overall, what we actually get here for the green dragon is some really good information, to the point where it actually makes my job a lot harder since, well, I do think the monster manual actually did a pretty good job here. But don't you even worry, I do have some good stuff to go through, but first, let's cover their physical appearance. So the question here is, how do you differentiate a green dragon from another type of dragon, obviously outside of their color? Remember that you cannot discern color in the darkness, even if you have dark vision, so that being the case, what would you actually look for? Well, the frills on top of the dragon's head, which every single green dragon has, is probably your best bet, though you will have to pay close attention to a few other things. Many other dragons, like the black, gold, and copper dragons, share similar looking frills, so you will have to go through a process of elimination. Black dragons have very specific looking horns, so that should be a pretty dead tail. Gold dragons have inordinate long tails, and their legs are super thin when compared to the thick and big thighs of the green dragon. Copper dragons have short necks when compared to the swan-styled neck of the green dragon. Look, I'm not gonna lie. If you're looking at a draconic skeleton of a green dragon, it's going to be very tricky to tell what exactly is it, especially if the frills are no longer visible on the skeleton. There is, however, something magical and very special that happens in and around the body of the dead green dragon, but we will cover that by the end of the episode. First, let's actually start with their social behavior. You might not know it, but green dragons are actually masters of politics. In fact, very often they try to meddle in the political affairs of cities and towns close to their forest. They will attempt to bribe and coerce city officials in order to attempt to steer the community in a particular direction. Now, there is seldom a real reason for the dragon to do this, since for the most part, the green dragon just enjoys manipulating people in this form as a hobby and to personally amuse itself. It actually sees this as an experiment and as practice of its coercive abilities. Now, unfortunately for green dragons, they typically do not possess the power to polymorph into a humanoid, and I say unfortunately because many of them actually would love nothing more than to straight up live in a city and be allowed to coerce people as a shrewd merchant or as a master politician. In the forest, though, they typically take a more direct and threatening approach. The monster manual describes interactions between green dragons as harsh and crude, which is most certainly true. See, green dragons are lawful creatures, but unlike gold dragons and blue dragons who are always lawful, green dragons don't actually have strict hierarchies within their communities. This is because green dragons know each other too well to be able to trust one another. They know that they're all liars and traitors, and for the most part, they will refuse to cooperate with one another. If there are multiple green dragons that live in the same forest, there will then be a very straightforward pecking order where the older dragon will be treated with more respect. But this level of respect is paper thin, and no green dragon is ever fooled into thinking another actually has anything but disdain towards it. That being said, this level of engagement completely shifts between mates. Even though green dragons do not interact very well at all with each other, when one finds a mate, they develop an extremely powerful bond, one that you might actually not expect. There is literally nothing more important to a green dragon than its babies, who they will defend to the death if they have to. In the event of an attack by an enemy, the female dragon will jump straight into combat in order to protect the babies, while the male green dragon will fly away with the eggs or the wormlings in his clutches, and it will not return until he is sure that the babies are safe. Only then will the male dragon return to join the combat. Green dragon parents will make sure that their babies are always well protected and will spend every single waking moment teaching them everything that they need to know, which for the most part revolves around teaching them how to trick and how to manipulate lesser beings. Indeed, schooling for the green wormlings is all about how to sweet talk others and how to get what they want from them. This love that green dragons have for their babies is the one reason that defines their greatest enemy. See, the monster manual mentions that green dragons enjoy the taste of elf. In fact, they also enjoy the taste of sprites. They also enjoy corrupting and torturing both, but this is not necessarily because they are their greatest enemy. In fact, a green dragon's greatest enemy is actually hill giants. This is because in hill giant culture, hunting and eating green dragon babies is considered a delicacy, and since green dragons are overly protective of their babies, this has created an unbreakable hatred for the giants. So whenever possible, green dragons will do their best to kill and enslave as many hill giants as they can. When it comes to a green dragon's territory and lair, I feel like it is sort of obvious what they're into. I mean, green dragons equals forest. It is as straightforward as it can get. This is why I think it's actually going to blow your mind a little bit, what I'm about to tell you, because it is certainly not intuitive at all. Green dragons love forests, but they actually very much dislike jungles. See, a green dragon would almost 100% of the time prefer a very cold tundra forest than a steamy hot jungle. But certainly its favorite style of wood would be the more temperate style of forests. See, green dragons enact a lot of enjoyment out of their visual and olfactory surroundings. They love the look of the forest, they enjoy the changing of the seasons, but most of all, the smell of the forest is like a drug to the dragon. There's a sizable difference between a jungle and a forest in these factors, at least for the green dragon. On top of the fact that the green dragon mostly eats mammals, and it would rather eat large beasts like moose, deer, and bear than monkeys and tigers. This is why you're going to have a very difficult time actually finding a green dragon in, for example, the jungles of Chult. Now, not to say that there wouldn't be, but the green dragons that you would find in these biomes are generally the green dragons that didn't really have any other choice, probably because stronger green dragons have kicked them out of better forests. Now, to close up the video, let's talk about the natural magics of the green dragon. Like with all other true dragons, just the very nature of the dragon existing in a location, it changes said location considerably. We mentioned before how animals start working for the dragon, how plants grow spines, and how the very forest itself hides the dragon and moves at the behest of the creature. These effects typically form around 1 mile surrounding the lair of the green dragon. Now, as powerful as these effects are, they cease to be when the green dragon dies, since they are only manifested by the powerful presence and natural magics of the creature. What you probably don't know is that even though the forest itself loses its magics, the actual location of the green dragon's grave suffers quite the opposite. See, the decaying body of a green dragon is the greatest fertilizer seemingly in the magical world. The immediate location of the dragon's grave explodes in plant growth, quote, resulting in lush, beautiful, and deadly plant growth. Grasses, trees, and other vegetation, nearly all of them poisonous, grow swiftly to abnormally large sizes, end quote. What's interesting about this as well is that as the magics of the body of the green dragon seep into the earth, they actually thin the layer between the prime material realm and the Feywild, so the plants in the effective region around the carcass of the dragon become more and more Fey-touched, which results in even bigger growth for these trees. It wouldn't be uncommon actually for hags of the forest to have in their possession maintained carcasses of green dragons for the purposes of growing poisonous plants and for the purposes of opening portals to the Feywild. So keep this in mind too, because the scales of a green dragon make for perfect light to medium armor. And that is because the scales of a green dragon are not as hard or as thick as the scales of any other true dragon. Instead, they are the most flexible out of their entire kind. So if you happen to raid a forest hag's shack, you might be able to find some of those juicy scales. So there you go, you're welcome for that tip. But yeah, this is what I meant before when we talked about how to tell a green dragon skeleton apart from another type of dragon. Just by looking at the skeleton itself, you might have a very hard time since there wouldn't be too many differentiating factors in the body to tell them apart. But a sure way to know that the skeleton that you're looking at is indeed a green dragon would be to notice the explosive vegetation that surrounds the skeleton of the creature. Having found that, you would be able to tell exactly what you were looking at. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I would like to personally thank my Patreon supporters, Rukato Fan, Major Fail Gaming, Wyatt Curlin, Barry Maskant, Toby Oliver, Dylan Baker, Zach Bowell, Spencer Boeck, and Meaty Ogre at Best for supporting me on Patreon at the $25 level. If you would like to support me as well, then please head on over to patreon.com/MrRhexx to support. Thank you guys so much for watching. It was a little bit harder to find extra interesting content for the green dragon, at least harder than any of the other dragons has been in the past. The Monster Manual really did a good job at just kind of exploring the creature and basically telling us everything that we actually needed to know. So, whew, you know, I did my best, but I did think I found some really good stuff over there in the older books. But in any case, if you guys really liked the video, then make sure to like it. If you didn't like it, then of course leave a dislike. Leave me a comment telling me what you thought about the video. And if you haven't, make sure to click on the playlist here for my Dungeons & Dragons lore and just check out everything that we have done, including every single other dragon lore that we have done. I know that you guys have been a big fan of this series, and I think I have finally decided on a title for this series. I know that some of you we're not big fans of the clickbaity style titles, and I think we have kind of just decided to stay with what you would see this title be for this video. We'll see how that works, how people kind of feel about it, but in any case, thank you all so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to the next one. See you guys then. Bye-bye.